where I'm working right now, it's an Episcopal church, but it's okay. Um, and so this is the beginning of my second year there. And when I started in this church, instead of lead pastor, it's the dean and rector. I said, "Hey, we need you to start a children's chapel." And if we've ever met, you know that I'm really not the kind of person that loves pulling kids out of worship. Like that's not my thing. But there were 4 worship services for families to go to. So I said, great, as long as I can market this as another option in faith formation. I said, do whatever you want. I said, great. This children's chapel was very difficult. And there was no chapeling let's say there was no chapeling. And my main work was convincing parents that they can parent in the pews. So here I am on this Sunday. I actually had time to go to the very formal, very traditional service with my 5 of my kids. 2 were home, 1 was sick, and 1 was watching the sickie because both my husband and I were working that morning. And I thought, great, they're going to see what it's like. I've been doing this for 21 years. Yeah, my kids can be a little spicy. Oh my gosh, they were beyond spicy. They were, so I'm there with my 21-year-old, my 16-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 11-year-old, my 9-year-old. And you should know my 14-year-old is a pianist and plays for congregations frequently, so he knows how to do this. He's sitting there quoting Monty Python, and I'm telling, shh, quit it. My 11 and 9-year-old are writing notes to each other on the bulletins, quoting a favorite book of theirs, something about papayas. I'm like, quit it, not now. My 21-year-old is losing it, and she's loudly telling everybody, because Annalise puts herself in charge of everything. She was louder than all of them. And my 16-year-old is like dying and sinking and like, I don't want to be here. And and then I have this self-imposed rule that there are no phones in church. My kids, my family, but my phone is vibrating and I see it's my 19-year-old texting me, "Hey, new high score, Sam's fever's 102, new high score, 102.5." I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna have to pull it out and tell them how much ibuprofen. Okay. And I see right behind me, there's a couple that's very formal. And she's actually an Episcopal priest, and they're both a little severe looking, you know? And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to hear it. I'm so going to hear it. And I heard nothing from anybody. Now, 21 years ago, I would have been hearing it and hearing it and hearing it, but I'm not hearing it. And then I'm sitting there during communion. We were one of the first groups to go up. And I see 10 families walk past. They are families that I work with and kids that have the same amount of energy as my kids. And I didn't even realize how many of them had been there. I'm like, oh. But the point of my story is that even someone that's been doing this for a long time and has kids that have been in the pews a long time are going to sit there some days and go, holy smokes, where's the door? I'm done. So I remember that every time I walk into church because I never know which parent has hit the holy smokes, I'm done phase. And to be honest, those are not the words that are in my head when I'm done. You know, it's a lot nastier. So I have learned that if I am catching a parent when they have hit their frustration level, I listen for the frustration, not to the words. I mean, you listen to the words, but you know what I mean? Like, don't take any salty language to mean anything other than they're frustrated. So here's what I did. I made some slides. If you've been with me before, you know I'm awkward with slides, but I'm awkward in general. So I'm going to put them up and I'm just going to touch on a few things. But if you see that you want to go in a different direction about how to connect families with church and home and all that, please just start talking, okay? Totally fine. So now you get to watch me attempt to bring this up. Oh, I did. Okay, but that's not, here's where we want to be. All right. So let me move you guys here so I can see you. Excellent. Okay, so some basics. And this is the biggest thing. It's the third one. I should have put it first. Our youngest crew at this point are COVID babies. And I say that because the parents are COVID parents. And they have all gone through this first phase of life together. So they are used to being together, and they're also used to feeling a little frustrated that they're always together. So they are not sure exactly where they want to be. My oldest kid is a dance education major and teaches dance at the university down the street. And they have a class for 2 and 3 year olds. And she came home one day. She's like, "These parents will not go. I don't understand. They're at the window. They're busting in." I'm like, "Honey, those are babies. You got to plan with the parents, not the parents staying outside." And she's like, "I don't understand. It wasn't that way when I was that little." I'm like, "Honey, you were signed up for nothing when you were that little. And these are families that are used to being together." So I think we need to remember that we've got families that are used to being together a lot. Everybody right now has a great variation in skills. And I'm talking faith formation wise, I'm finding gaps in what everybody knows because we had those years of pandemic life, shall we say. So things didn't happen. We're now catching up on getting everybody the Bibles that they didn't get during those years. We're catching up and making sure everybody's got the different stories and know the rhythm to our order of worship. But there's still a great variation in skills for children and parents. The parents aren't always there. They were learning alongside their kids. So we need to make room for them to gain those skills also. There's a great variation in day-to-day rhythms right now. I'm finding more families are going back to the pre-pandemic life of being overscheduled. So when they come to us on Sunday, they're a little which I understand too. And everything is always amplified when people are hungry, exhausted, or fearful, both the parent or the child. And sometimes it's the parent scared for the child and the child doesn't know it, or the child is scared for the parent and the parent doesn't, like, there's always something. So I have to keep all of that in mind when I'm planning to be with the families. Let's see if I can advance the slide. No, I can't do this. There we go. Okay, so I want to talk about 4 areas. So in church, being with families in church, and also seriously, you can unmute and just start talking at me. That's not a problem. Worship, faith formation, fellowship, and the basic needs when people are with you. So if we looked at worship first, with the family and church and worship, surround people with support. I call them the allies. If I know that families are going to tend to gravitate to a certain place in the sanctuary to sit, I find the allies that I know are going to be supportive and ask if they don't mind sitting around in that direction, just so there's that friendly buffer. Like I unknowingly had a friendly buffer on Sunday when my kids were being all sorts of spicy, and it worked out. It made all the difference. Pew baskets, we're used to that, but they're for parents and children too. So when you're planning what's going in them, I know you all would never say something to a parent if you saw them there with a popper, but there are going to be some people that will. So I will I always make sure let's say it's a poppet prayer or a poppet psalm, and I want them to just, I have these great poppets, I should have brought them home, with letters on them. Spell out the psalm and the number. So, they'll be popping PSALM and the number. And it's okay for the parents too, because sometimes they have to help their kids find the letters and then the parents wind up popping, and it helps everybody feel calmer. I put things in there that are useful for everyone. And did I put you guys there? So maybe that's on a different one. I'm going to put this out there. I stock pew baskets, but I also have a giant shelf of things it's a decent sized shelf in the back of the sanctuary, so that there is a reason for people to stand up and go and get other things, because sometimes people need to move around, and it's always appropriate to be walking back to get something for a kid, or for a kid to go get it and then come back. It gives them that break. You'll notice that I'm not saying playground here. I love playgrounds. I am all in on playgrounds. I do not have a playground right now, and I don't feel that I'm failing at life. If you are also in a place where you don't have a playground, you're not failing at life. You just don't have a playground right now. The thing to remember is that you're offering options for families to make it so that they are comfortable being actively engaged in worship. Another thing that I've had great success with is sending the bulletin home early to families. So the office will send it to me. I've been doing this for years in different congregations. The office will send it to me on a Thursday or Friday, and I attach it to my Saturday email that goes out to families so that they know what to expect. There's some kids that really enjoy knowing the rhythm, and there's some parents that really like knowing where there might be an appropriate break for people to use the bathroom so they can tell the kids beforehand, hey, when this happens, that's your bathroom break, because there are kids that will ask for that, or the water break, you know. But for whatever reason, it's such an easy thing to do. It takes very little extra time for anybody to do that. Oh, I did write that there, station for materials in the back. Another thing that I do to make worship easier is to provide previews of the scripture. So sometimes I make a simple video playlist. You've got Kathy there. Kathy's the queen of making playlists, and you've got playlists on your website that you can send families to. And sometimes I send home a Visio Divina where I just I have a photo that I've chosen off of Canva along with a wondering question with the scripture, and send it home so they can start thinking about it before they come to worship. But I also have it for them to use during the week to return to. You know, I'm going to stop the share for a second because I can't see all your faces and I can't get a good reading as if I'm talking too much. Okay. One thing I want to emphasize, when I said I make a video, you need to know how much it does not cost me anything and how informal it is. I literally use that free software that every church uses for their live streaming called OBS. And the reason I have it is because my 19-year-old set me up with it, and you can find it too. Like, it's free. It's a free download, and your church, I can pretty much guarantee, is using it for all your streaming, and it costs me nothing. You can also record yourself on your Zoom account, but the quality is weird when you do a recording from that. So what I do is I record it on OBS, and then I put it on our private YouTube channel for where I'm working, and then I attach the link. I'm not kidding you. There are videos where I am still wearing my apron and I've got, you know, whatever I was baking on me because I forgot to take it off, or I forgot to fix my hair, or there's a kid bombing in. I mention this for two reasons. One, don't stress about this. Like, it's another way of connecting. But two, the families give me the feedback that they like it because it seems so accessible. They see everything that's happening in my life, and they see the connection of the sacred and the everyday. And they said, you know, maybe don't show up with chocolate batter on your head, but other than that, it's okay. Just, you know, it's an equalizing when they see that your life is, well, your lives are not as messy as mine, but when they see that your life is human, shall we say. So, do you have questions for me? You guys are so quiet. No? Am I talking too much? No? Okay, let me keep
No,
going.
you're fine. And I wish you later you can share the. I never saw a pop-up that has letters on it. I'm like, oh, I love that idea.
I'm looking. Nope, they're
You
not
can send it
here.
later. I can even
So
send it out. All
I,
your
I will,
little
I'm looking to
prompts.
see if there's one in my bag. I have, okay, so I'll send you the Amazon link, but it's
Cool.
basically this it just has the
Yeah.
letters on it.
Oh, yeah.
It
We
just
have those,
has,
but not with letters. I think how that is super cool. Like to, hey, can you spell it out? Like
mhm,
very nice
yeah,
connection, so they can play at the same time and
yeah,
um, connect that. I always say kids are so into it. Like I have all the things up in up front, and you
yeah,
think they're not paying attention, and I have those little worship, whatever it's called, notes, or
mhm,
write down the song, write it, what have you. And oh, I put the other day tally marks, like tally how many times did you hear the word Jesus, whatever it was, school, blah blah blah. And you can actually see they pay so much attention. They're paying attention, like they look like there is nothing going on, which is awesome.
yeah.
So we can never underestimate how much they get.
So my favorite story about kids getting stuff and you think they're not paying attention is my now 19-year-old son. When he was 4 at this point, and he had a severe hearing loss. And was also a typical 4-year-old that was all over the place. So he had one of those, he had a whole season of, I had to pat him down to see what he smuggled into church. Is he hanging upside down? Is he sticking Play-Doh into his sisters? Things like that. What's even happening in church? Okay. So one day we were driving to BJ's and we went past this place where they were building something, but they were using non-union workers. And the habit in New York was they would put this giant inflatable rat in places where they were using non-union workers. And the kid said, "What is that?" And I said, "Oh, that's the union rat," and tried to explain it in terms that a 5, 4, and 2-year-old would understand. It did not go well. But we moved along. We went to BJ's. We got what we needed. We're going home. It had to be 45 minutes, 60 minutes later. And Jeb, who can't hear very well and is all over the place, we drive past and he goes, "It's just like Jesus." I'm like, "What's just like Jesus, Jeb?" I'm trying to figure out where the cheese sticks got to in the car. That communion rat, like when Jesus threw the people out of the temple, he got angry. He sent them right out. That's what the communion rat is. I'm like, okay, that's brilliant. I said union rat, but okay. So whenever we see a union rat, which is not often because they're not in Pennsylvania, maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about and it's a New York thing. It's bizarre. Like it's like 2 stories tall, inflatable. So he picked up on things in church. I had no idea. All right. Let's see. Share. There we go. All right. So let's see if I can scroll to the next one. So in faith formation, connecting that with the families and taking it home. Again, I surround people with support. So sometimes that's just a little take home from what we did in the session, so that it's something that they can ask each other about or remember what went on. Sometimes I will send include in an email what it is so that they have an idea what it is. Sometimes it's a link to something, but I surround with support. That way parents don't feel that they can't have these conversations with the kids, especially if they weren't in the class with them and really don't know what's going on, what was happening in there. But one of the things I do frequently are multi-generational offerings. So, and I'll call it Family Sunday School, or I won't call it anything and just invite people in. Sometimes they like not having a name and it's just like a pop-up thing. It's not really a pop-up in my head. I've planned for it, but to them, like, oh, this just showed up. And I did this all summer and this is a congregation that never had anything for families in the summer, never had Sunday school, any offerings for families. And I said, I'm doing it. And I just opened it up in the fellowship hall and I had like 45 people coming every week for this, interacting together. And it was 15 to 20 minutes all together in 2 different centers and lots of conversation and a little something to take home that was based on what we were doing. I found great success billing things in 3 to 6 week sessions. I find it used to be I could get families to commit to 6 weeks. Now it's like 3 weeks. I do still shoot for 6 weeks at Lent, but if I tell them, we have a 3-week session using Legos coming up, which is true. I've got the whole year planned using Legos, but I'm going to call this a 3-week session for, the first 3 weeks in October. Will you be able to come to this? I've designed it so that little Johnny is going to really enjoy the characters that we're working with. They sign up and they come. I've done nothing different in my planning. It's the marketing. I find that I have to be someone that does marketing. I also always include Zoom links for what we're doing so that people know that, if you're sick, please don't come in. Oh, please, for the love of all that's good, I don't want your boogers. But also, if you're traveling or I have had kids join me from grocery stores, from doctor's appointments, from ice skating rinks, like from CVS. They just pop their kids on there and we go at it and they interact and it's lovely. And I always have some sort of small trinket that connects the home and the lesson. And I'm going to stop the share for a second. We're talking things that we make with stuff from our craft cabinet and not junky things, like something that you can use for the week. a bookmark or a keychain pull or just using whatever I've got in the supply cabinet. I have like 8 things that I rotate through every 2 months. So shrinky dinks, beads, keychains, bookmarks. What else do we rotate through? Magnets. What are the other 3 things? I'm forgetting, but you come up with your own rhythm and just rotate through them. And they're not meant to last forever. You want them to last the week and be useful. So it's just a conversation tool. So I guess not a coloring page is where I'm going with that. You know, something that will get put somewhere. It's something for the car. What is the thing for the car? Oh, it's sitting here. So I usually use these. These are table conversation cubes. They're meant for that. But I give them to kids as they're walking to their car, and they stay in the car and they play with them and ask questions of each other as they're driving places. That's the car thing. There was a time where I had access to a printer that would print out window clings. That was glorious because then I could put things on that and they could put it on those back windows in the car that didn't affect anyone's vision. I don't have access to that anymore. I wish I did. Boy, that'd be glorious. You know what? You could probably do that with dry erase markers. I'll get back to you. I'm going to play with that. Sorry. You just made me think of that. Any questions? No? All right. So in faith formation, now in fellowship, I feel that there are congregations that forget to think about fellowship as part of their experience on a Sunday morning. And I like to spend time thinking about that because when people are fed, people are happy. So I like to make sure that I'm planning for things in there. And you'll see at the bottom, I wrote Secret Ninja Faith Formation. I want people to be happy in fellowship and have time to connect with others because those connections are what will sustain them. But I also like to sneak in little things to help sustain their spiritual development throughout the week there too. And I'll talk more about that. I have learned that people don't always think about what's kid-friendly food in a fellowship time. So I always work with my kid budget to make sure I've got some money for yogurt squeezers. I don't understand why people love these little yogurt tubes, but man, they love little yogurt tubes. Pretzels. What else do I always put in there? Cheese sticks. Those are the 3 things that I always make sure that I've got for them. And it's not everything every week. It's, you know, when I've got them. I like to put butcher paper on tables or craft paper. You can do the same thing with paper tablecloths, but I find they rip. There are also people that like to have formal coffee hours. I don't know if you've found that, but I've always, yeah. And they're like, oh, you can't mess with our tablecloths and our centerpieces. I'm like, okay, this is the table that I'm setting up. So, and people do go over to that table and I lay it with the craft paper and a jar of markers or crayons or whatever, and a conversation question or just something for people to draw. I always have that available. The conversation cubes that I showed you earlier, I will put them out there and I encourage them to be taken out, but I also put them in people's hands. Table tents that I'll put mealtime prayers on or conversation questions or a wondering question on that can go home with people. You know, they take very little time to make in Canva and print out, and you just rotate through them and throw them on there. This is something I'm starting this year, and this will be like every 6 weeks. I'm going to put out a little station with paper bags, you know, lunch sacks and kid-friendly snacks that they can pack for the week and take home with them. And they decorate the bags with their families and little lunchbox notes that would go in there to help connect. So little lunchbox notes like, I'm praying for you to something, you know, put it there. Or who did you see sharing love with someone today? Things like that to help bring the faith into that. This should not cost a lot of money. I already have a boatload of paper bags. I have the crayons, I have the markers, I have access to the printer, and I have a free Canva account. The money will be in granola bars or gummies that are safe for everybody. And I don't anticipate this costing me more than, say, $150 for the year. and I'm happy to put part of my budget into that. Another thing that's fun in fellowship, but it also gets me in trouble, is I haul out the kid instruments and I let them have fun. I don't do this every week, but when Music Sunday happens, people are excited, except the people that are never excited. So, sorry, y'all. I am who I am. I also bring out board games because I like to let people play games and make connections that way. I've said this over and over. They're not going to remember everything you've taught them. I'm sorry, they're not. They're going to remember how they felt there and share that with others. So all of these little things that I put out there are to help foster the understanding of who they are and who they are called to be in community in God's great kingdom. So I'm going to stop the share for a sec. Any questions? You guys are so quiet.
I just want Elizabeth to be with me all the time. Say, hey, let's do this.
Oh, but I get in trouble though, so you don't want me to.
That's okay. It's good trouble.
There are people that really get angry over the butcher paper and the instruments. I'm like, I don't
I
understand.
know.
I don't
Get
get it.
by.
Board
I hear
games
you.
board games tend to be okay, but I also learned Monopoly never goes out because there's always someone that's super competitive and it gets nasty. So Monopoly is
We're
not on my
sorry.
list. Oh, and my Noah is one of them. Like, oh, you can't play Monopoly with anyone outside of this family because people will tie you to a chair. Um, so, all right, let me bring. Oh,
Um,
I see you. One sec. Let me stop what I was hitting share. There you are. Sorry, Allison.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna affirm your idea with the formal coffee hour and kind of turning that on its head. Like the church I was at most recently, they were so excited to bring back the very formal, very large coffee hour, post COVID and everything. And it was great, except and I was newer to the church too. So like the first time I saw the coffee hour come back was the first time I had seen the coffee hour period. And was the children's pastor and youth pastor, and I was, everyone's like, isn't it great? It's back. Isn't it great? I just walked in and I was like, this is a nightmare. Like we just got a bunch of young families to return to church and they're literally like panic stricken because they're like, do their kids grab the, real fine china like settings and, the full size muffins from Costco, because adults know to like cut those, but the kids are just like, there's food. And so all that to say, I can't take full credit on this at all, but someone else on staff came to me and said, well, what if we set up a part of it for young families and they can actually stay in fellowship rather than literally trying to flee from like messing it up, And so we brought up smaller kid size tables and took, and I mean took, like had to take captive two of those fancy tables, take the cloths off, the centerpieces off, cover them with destroyable paper. And but that was probably like the best thing that ever happened at that church, like all the young families came to me and they were like, oh my gosh, we can sit and talk to our friends now because our kids are, and we put it in a corner strategically so the kids couldn't like run away. But yeah, we got, and it cost us, I mean, it was like $50 total for everything. We just got refreshed the art supplies, lots of paper, board games, and like I said, putting the tables up there, and then the snacks. That's the other thing. I looked at it and I was like, no kids, no, none of this is kid food. So and here a little trick too, because we're coming up on Halloween. There's a lot of great snacks now for like those who want to give away healthy Halloween snacks. And so I was able to stock up for as long as they stayed good. But I mean, even like the fruit squeezies, things like that are usually higher end, like at Target, they always have like 30% off all Halloween stuff. So even though just because it had a bat on it or whatever, I was able to get sort of those nicer snacks and stock it up for a long time. But anyway, all that to say, I just want to affirm that idea because that went really, really well. And like more than anything, young families being like, we can stay and talk to each other. And so
That's brilliant on going to Target and getting the discount stuff. Thank you. We'll be doing, actually, I'll be sending children of mine to do that because they love Target and I don't. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Goes my pathetic sharing. Haha, I did it. Okay. So, a few things that I make sure that I do with families. I don't do this necessarily with families. I do this with all the leaders. I practice those safe sanctuaries procedures so that we can recite them like nobody's business, so that we practice things through so that it's just automatic. And I know, Michigan, you're amazing at this. So that's a huge thing for families to know that you are ready to, and Marie too. I'm sorry, I'm not picking on you and Maryland. I know you're doing the right thing, Maryland and Marie. I also make security visible. So they're going to see that I have a walkie-talkie on me. They're going to see that I've put name tags on people. They're going to see that I have evacuation routes posted. Like, it's all there so that they're not saying, is she flying by the seat of her pants? Are we really safe here? Because I had, you know what? I'm stopping the share for a sec. I had an issue this summer. Where I am, it's Southside Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Which, if you're familiar with Lehigh University, it's a very high-end private college. Lots of money there, right there. And then it's surrounded by incredibly poor neighborhoods, including a burgeoning homeless population. Our shelter only operates from beginning of November through the end of April. And when it got hot, our neighbors that are experiencing homelessness had nowhere to go. And with the recent Supreme Court decision that anytime someone who's homeless is on public property, they can be arrested, they were looking for any place that wasn't public property to be. I had someone somehow get into our building overnight and was hiding in my children's wing. And there was not a malicious intent on this. He wanted a place to be. He wanted a place to wash up. But once he realized I was there with children, he started a cat and mouse game so that we weren't able to catch him. It took me 2 hours. I had to get kids out and whatnot. And there were some people with leadership that didn't want to discuss this with the families. I said, I will tell you now that if I were someone that were coming here and I knew this happened and my kids were there and it were not discussed immediately, you would never see me again. And I would be vocal about that. And they said, oh, like, yeah, so we need to address this. We didn't do anything wrong, but we now need to tighten everything up. So the families are now adjusting to the fact that I literally have everything locked down. I'm checking IDs. The congregation is not thrilled that I've locked everything down because they want access to everything. Like, oh, no. And extra security people around so that we are able to be in communication about different points where people can get in and out. So I've been doing this for a long time, and that's the first time I've had something of that magnitude happen. I'm bringing this up because if it happens to you, you're not alone. Like this, it's not you. You take care of it. This is why we practice everything. And then you learn from what happened and you make the changes that you need to make. Okay. All right. So this is another thing that I've started this year, toileting items in all bathrooms. And when I say toileting, I'm talking about all sorts of things that you would need in a restroom in all the bathrooms that exist in there, so that nobody has to wonder if they can get what they need in a certain bathroom. Everything's there. It makes it easier for families. I also make sure we've got good snacks, and there's always a little something that makes people happy. You know, you're like, oh, they've got the Pepperidge Farm cookies this week. You know, just something that for somebody needs a pick-me-up, but generally they're the healthy snacks that I have around. And I'm also very clear about how I communicate with families. I see that people get anxious giving out their email addresses, like, are you going to spam me? How often am I going to hear from you? I let them know that I send something out every Saturday at 1 p.m. If you hear from me during the week, it's because it's a big thing and you need to pay attention. But other than that, it will be Saturdays at 1 p.m. That's when everything will hit you. And because what I'm using at this church is just email and not constant contact, they don't have a way to back out of it. You know how you can quietly unsubscribe on a constant contact thing? I've told them that there is never any problem with them responding and saying, please remove me from this distribution list. There are no hard feelings. So I'm very clear about that. The other thing that I will say to people is I don't have the answer, but I will find out and get right back to you, because I won't always have the answers, but I will work on getting that for them. And I find that they appreciate knowing that I'm going to be honest with them. It's about building that, well, trust, but that relationship where they know that this is a place that they can turn and we will be there for them. So the next 3 slides, these are the last ones. These are things that I do to help really connect. Where are we on time, Susan? I don't want to run over. I'm so sorry. We okay?
Yeah, we're still okay.
Okay.
That's
So, okay. I do blessings. And let me tell you, the Episcopalians get a little funky with that. They're like, ooh, what's this girl doing? She's raised her hands and she's blessing people. They're not used to that. That's the Methodist in me. Sorry, y'all. But kids love it. And then the kids start praying along. They see the hand go up, they're joining me. I push into the nursery and make sure that I touch base with all those kids at least twice in the morning and their families and during the day, so that they know that we are here, and they know our nursery workers. Well, our nursery workers are the best. Oh my gosh, I love them to pieces. But I also want them to know the other people here on staff. I make sure I've built in a few cozy spots for people to land throughout the campus. I make it sound like, well, you know what? This church is actually pretty big, but I've worked in campuses that are not big at all. And it can be something simple like a beanbag chair and a blanket. It can be pillows on the floor from couches that people have abandoned, and I've cleaned the cushions and stuff like that. But I always make sure there's some sort of cozy spot to land. A friend just turned me on to this great little tent from Target that is $20. I'll send you a link along with the letter poppets. It's $20, and it's a nice spot for kids that need a place to go and just be alone for a few moments, but they're within your line of sight, and you can wipe it down easy. So that's being added to my offerings. And about every liturgical season, I do some sort of pop-up liturgical art center where we're interacting with the color for that season in different ways. And I put it in spots that people don't expect. So I find I get more traction when I go to unexpected places. And the other thing that I do a lot is make sure people see what is happening. I don't keep quiet about what we're doing in the children's wing. I get it out and around, and I talk with as many people as I can. They're probably really tired of me, but I also want people to know that this is not just something that's siloed away. This is part of the whole church, and this is part of everyone's lifelong faith formation. So we're working together. For families at home, I like to piggyback things onto what they're already doing. So everybody should be brushing their teeth twice a day, right? I've got a prayer that we can pray, and you can write it right on your mirror with this dry erase marker, and you can pray this while you're brushing your teeth. Or you're in the car, here are a few conversation cards that I have pre-cut and put on a little key ring for you that you can flip through while you're sitting in the carpool line or a grocery pickup. So I piggyback onto things that are already happening in their lives. I'm a big believer in quality Bible stories for the kids. So I like specific children's Bibles. And of course, they're the pricey ones. But I will spend the money on those and keep them, even if it's just one copy in the church. I will make sure that that's what's available, and that's what I'm reading from for the families. I provide different prayer options and song options. And so bedtime blessings and mealtime prayers, we all have a decent handle on that. Just go through what you've got. Like I talk about this, like this is a gift from past Elizabeth to now Elizabeth. So I will take 40 minutes and I will go through my mealtime prayers, and I will organize them into like 26 weeks. And then I will rotate through them for the year. They'll come back twice during the year. And then I can restart the next year. Like 40 minutes of work, boom, I'm ready forever. Or I will go through bedtime blessings. I got to tell you, bedtime blessings get a little tired after a while, right? Right. You need new ones. So I will go through books that people have, and when I organize, I write down where I got that from, the publisher, the date, and everything, so I don't have to go hunt that down because I get exhausted with that if I don't write it down immediately. And I got to be honest, my sticky note system did not work because kids came and grabbed my sticky notes and used them for throwing out lollipops or something like that. So it has to be a Google Sheet thing where I have documented it. I am not sponsored by Google, but God bless Google, because their whole Drive thing makes my life so much easier. I can access my stuff wherever.